I think the chance of a southern snowstorm, or winter storm at least, is significantly growing. The potential's there. It's the cold air that's moving in, not just right now. This is going to move out. In fact, we're going to see a bit of a break across a lot of the country, but we just primed the pump for the Siberian Express to kick in, and that's going to push cold air all the way down to the Gulf Coast, here into Texas. I mean, even down to Brownsville. I mean, into northern Mexico. It's going to get cold, really cold. And now you've got this baroclinic zone, this dividing line between cold polar Arctic air to the north and really warm air to the south across the Gulf of Mexico, and the ingredients are there for some kind of storm to form. And the question is, being this far south, my gracious, you're putting the potential for wintry weather all the way down into the deep south. And some of the models try to push some warm air north up along the Atlantic coast. That would put your storm into the northeast. We're going to examine the potential of that today. If you're new to the channel, thanks for coming by. I'm Travis. I used to work in the meteorology world years ago. I got out many years back, but I find myself looking at this type of data, and I decided to start making YouTube videos about it. So if you think you'll like this, come back, subscribe. It really helps the channel for those of you who have subscribed. So thank you, and give it a like if you don't mind. Look at this. This is something, look, I know what the operational models are showing. I get it. But one thing that I like to do is go to the Ensemble guidance. This is an average of the 51 different potential outcomes that uses different parameters and starting points and yada, yada, yada. The idea is the averages are starting to show some heavy snow into North Carolina. And look at this. This is the potential for some snow all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Now, I don't know that it's going to snow all the way down to Corpus Christi right along the beach. I don't know that it's going to do that here into the Texas Gulf Coast over to Florida. But the fact that the ensembles are showing that with a heavy snow dump here into the Carolinas is really, really wild. Now, I think a lot of this will be ice, and I think this probably will shift a little bit further to the north. I could be completely wrong because this is an incredibly cold air mass. At least the Europeans picking up on it. The GFS also has it. So, yeah, and we're getting to that day 6 to day 7 time frame. It's not like we're looking 2 weeks out now. This is the Ensemble guidance showing more than an inch of snow and the potential of seeing that. It's not every day. In fact, I don't know the last time I've ever really looked at a greater than 50% chance of seeing an inch of snow here into the suburbs of Houston, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And now we're putting those chances all the way down to Brownsville. Pretty wild to see that. That extends north and east. And look, the further north you go, the air is actually going to be really dry here. So the snow chance is lower at this point, the further north you go. Some snow here in and around the Great Lakes. I want to move this forward ahead in time because while there will be some accumulating snow, not just here, but also into the Appalachians, look at these chances growing here across the southeast as an area of low pressure would move here and then likely redevelop off the coast. That could actually really mix things up as you get some southerly flow riding up over top of cold polar Arctic air at the surface, which would be reinforced by high pressure. That would give you more of a mix. Some of the models aren't picking up on that just yet. That's a fine-tuning detail that will come later. And then as an area of low pressure deepens off the coast, it really kind of just hops and translates and then moves up the coast. That's the question. Will it do that or will it go out to sea? A long way to iron that out, but the potential is starting to grow, so I'm looking at it. Let's walk you through the next several days. We do have a clipper system and some reinforcing cold air moving through the Great Lakes through Thursday into Friday. That's going to bring some snow here, light snow, some snow showers downwind of the lakes, though, will continue to add up, and some light snow here across the Rockies. Here comes the first sign of that cold air starting to move south as we head into Saturday and Sunday. It's going to bring a lot of snow up here into parts of Ontario, into Quebec, and then here into northern Ohio, northern Indiana, even into western Pennsylvania, western New York. There could be some decent accumulations out of this as our cold air builds in. Now, most of the time you start just looking at these storms and going, all right, where's your storm going to go? But I'm looking at this major Arctic high pressure. We've got a 1056 millibar high setting right over Calgary as we head into Sunday, and that cold air is just really heavy, really dense, and it wants to push toward the Gulf Coast. It's not going to hop over the mountains. It can't do it. So what does it do? It slides right down the face of the mountains, and that's what puts your cold air into Texas, deep into the heart of Texas here with this type of setup. Now we've got the lake effect snow going here in the east, some light snow starting to wrap up across the northeast. Now you watch this. You've carved everything out. You've really pushed your storm track way to the south. Huge area of high pressure here. It's not going to let anything come north. I promise you that with something like that. So anything that forms here it's going to go this way. It's not going to go west, right? So now you've got the potential for a winter storm moving along the Gulf Coast. This just looks incredibly, I don't want to say scary, but just wild looking. You've got a lot of ice showing up. We're now looking at really day 7 now, going into next Wednesday, almost arguably day 8. So a little bit far out in time for me to specify, are we going to see ice, snow, sleet, freezing rain? I just want to see that the storm is there. It's there on the European. It's also there on the GFS. I want to show you something, though. It looks a little different. There's your Arctic boundary. There's your storm that has to go somewhere that would likely form. Again, the models are just seeing such cold air that they're just going crazy a little bit. So in my mind, we might get a little more sensible with this as we head in time, or closer in time, rather. But still, really impressive looking here heading into next week. Let's see how it all plays out. A long way till we get there. We've still got several days. A closer look at that European. I do want to compare a little bit closer here into the south and just kind of look at this, because the European brings this right up the coast and it almost wants to dump a heavy snow into parts of New York and the Northeast. But when you see 3 big global models, including the Canadian, showing the same setup, there's your cold, high pressure. This is a 10, hold on. My gracious, the Canadian has a 1057 millibar high setting over Wyoming next week. This is incredibly strong. You've got that cold, dense air just pushing down. It's really heavy. So high pressure at the surface, real cold air pushing south. There comes the moisture on the Canadian, also picking up on the idea of something developing here across Texas and moving across the south. And the Canadian also on board with the idea of something happening here. It doesn't want to really move it up the coast quite like the GFS. If anything, it almost wants to suppress it just a little bit and kind of push it out to sea. And it's a lot slower too. So the Canadian is here on Monday and Tuesday, whereas the European had your big storm going. So there are still some outliers. So how cold are we talking? Well, it's going to be a chilly morning heading into Wednesday, especially across Indiana, Ohio, northern Kentucky, West Virginia, parts of Illinois. We're going to get below 0. Also up into Wisconsin, another cold morning here. Temperatures not warming up much tomorrow either, into the teens. Back into the 50s, though, across Alabama, into Georgia. I want to move you ahead in time. You can see that cold air moving out of the east. But look what happens as we head into next week, and we're also going to look at the plains down into Texas. There comes the cold. Heading into Saturday and Sunday, you can see it across the Great Lakes, and then it builds south. So by Monday morning, I mean, look at that. You're pushing below 0 here into Chicago, into the Midwest, way below 0 up here across Minnesota and Wisconsin. This is a very cold look. That's the newest run of the European. Today's run from this afternoon going out a little further. This is overdone, I think. I mean, you're putting temperatures near 20 below up toward Columbus. I got to tell you, though, this is not unheard of. It's not that it's ever happened. It's definitely happened before. 1977, the Ohio River was froze here. I mean, I saw some videos online. It was just absolutely nuts. I don't know that we get that cold, but the models are saying, watch out next week. Across the Central Plains here, too, cold as well. I want to fast forward until the cold air really moves south heading into the weekend. There it comes, bringing into that cold air into Nebraska, further to the south into Texas eventually. Now, it's not going to be as cold, but you can see the teens and single digits back here, even maybe near or below 0 across West Texas into the panhandle of Oklahoma. And then we've got temperatures well below freezing all the way to Brownsville. I mean, we may drop below freezing into New Orleans and then right along the Gulf Coast. Pretty wild to see that cold air, and then we moderate some and get a little warmer next week. But a wild, wild winter so far, in my opinion. Maybe some of you not getting the big snows, but it's been a long time since we've seen this much cold air over and over and over again. And it's on the way again. See you next time.